This week's constellations are Bootes, Corona Borealis, and Hercules. You might recognize something in this slide up in the upper right hand corner. That's Ursa Major, or those stars belong to Ursa Major. That asterism we know as the Big Dipper. And you can use it to find the brightest star in this week's group of constellations. So follow the arc in the handle of the Big Dipper and come to a bright star. And this is a bright star that stands out pretty well. Remember the phrase arc to Arcturus, and that's the name of the star that we just reached. And it is part of the constellation of Bootes the herdsman. And then next door to Bootes is Corona Borealis. In the next slide we'll look at all three of this week's constellations. Okay, over on the right, that brightest star you see inside that oval down toward the bottom right is Arcturus. There's the dented ice cream cone shape or dented kite shape of Bootes. And there's a pronunciation guide for it. When I learned this constellation, I heard it as Bootes from my astronomy instructor, but it's Bootes, closer to the correct pronunciation, although the pronunciation varies all over the place. And there's Arcturus down there at the bottom. And a few interesting facts about Arcturus. It's the fourth brightest star in the night sky. It's the brightest star north of the celestial equator. Not too far distance as stars go. Surface temperature of about 4,300 Kelvin. This puts it at roughly the surface temperature of a sunspot on the Earth, or on the Earth's sun, our sun. And when you actually see pictures of the sun with sunspots, what they've done is filtered out almost all of the light. And when you do that, the sunspots actually look black, but they're not black. They're about the color of Arcturus. So next time you're out looking at the night sky, look at Arcturus and think, okay, that's the color of a sunspot. Arcturus was used in navigation by the ancient Polynesians. From Tahiti, they would sail north and east until they reached the point where Arcturus passed directly overhead. And this happened because they happened to be at that point 19 degrees north of the Earth's equator. Arcturus has a declination of 19 degrees, and so it'll be directly overhead for someone at that latitude on Earth. And from that point, the Polynesians could then sail directly west to the big island of Hawaii, following the trade winds, and that was the way they could reach it. When they wanted to go back, they sailed south until Sirius passed directly overhead, and they were even with the latitude of Tahiti. Next door to Bootes is Corona Borealis. Inside that picture, just kind of a little bowl of stars there. Not a particularly distinctive constellation. They're not real bright stars, but they are right next door to Bootes, so they're not too hard to find. And then to the left of that, in this oval here, is most of the constellation of Hercules. Hercules, some of it is above the slide that I've got here, so we won't see it. And the shape that I've got drawn here is a little bit more than you usually see for the shape of Hercules. or maybe a little bit less if you're seeing the full drawing of it. Usually I just look for the bow tie figure that ignores that little bottom triangle on it. And this star is called Corniferous, spelled with a K. You can see a few facts about it. With a magnitude of 2.81, that's not a super bright star. It would actually be a struggle to see if you happen to be in town lights. And it's a binary star system. Okay, and then over here at the tip of that bottom triangle, Rosel-Gethy is the head of Hercules. Actually, the feet would be above the picture that we've got here, so we're looking at an upside down Hercules, but again, I just look for the bow tie figure and go with that. It's a ways away, multiple star system. The largest star is larger than the orbit of Mars, so that's pretty large. It has a quite low temperature for a star. When stars reach toward the end of their lives, depending on their masses, they may swell up into red giant stars. In this case, it's more of a red supergiant star, and their surface temperature drops, and so this star would look fairly reddish through a telescope, or through binoculars if you defocus it a little bit. You can sometimes pick up on the color better if you do that. Okay, this next slide shows most of Bootes. We're missing Arcturus here, but we'll be able to see some neighboring constellations. Now, you know, to the right of Bootes was Ursa Major in this slide, and then we have Bootes, and then to its left is Corona Borealis, to its left is Hercules, and then if you keep going, you come to Lyra, which is a constellation belonging to another week's study, and the brightest star in Lyra is Vega, sometimes pronounced Vega, and those are 4 constellations. So when you start being able to connect these different constellation groups, it makes them easier to find in the night sky. You can see Corniferous and Rosel-Gethy there. Now we'll look at some telescope objects that are in this part of the sky. Starting with this one, M13. This is a favorite summertime stargazing object, and it's fairly easy to spot if you work off this star and this star. It's about 2/3 or 3/4 of the way from one of them to the other, and pretty much along a line between the two, so you can find that fairly easily. And that's what it looks like through a really good telescope. I've never quite seen an image like this, but I have seen this through some fairly large telescopes, including the large telescope in Flagstaff, Arizona that Pluto was discovered on. During a tour of that place, you can look through the telescope, and M13 was very impressive through that. Globular cluster, a large number of stars, about 300,000 of them. A ways away, 25,000 light years away. Globular clusters are part of our own galaxy, although there are other galaxies that have globular clusters as well, but the ones amateurs look at are part of our own galaxy. And it's possibly visible to the naked eye under dark enough skies. I've never looked for it under really dark skies, but I should try it sometimes, because sometime it would be kind of fun to see if I could do it.